Amara keeps the heat on for strangers. Rosa keeps her fingers locked around a purse that can bankrupt the city's courage. Then Dante Bellini walks in. Polished shoes, careful smile, and the diner turns into a chessboard. Every booth becomes a square. Every word, a move. That ledger inside the purse, bribes, kickbacks, badge IDs, the map of how power breathes. Somewhere in its spine sits a name Amara knows like a scar. Her father. Once that page opens, there's no going back. Men will arrive, deals will creak, and the storm outside will be the quietest thing you hear. Step inside the silver comet and keep your eyes open. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. Subscribe and share. The lake wind hammered the chrome lamps of the silver comet as Amara Cole wiped a coffee ring from the counter for the 5th time. Outside, Buffalo's east side blurred to white. A text from the owner said, "Close early. Go." Amara didn't go. "Somebody will need heat," she told the empty room, flipped the urns to low, and left the neon humming open. She checked the back latch, salted the threshold, and set 2 sandwiches for the plow driver who swung by at 3. Her reflection wobbled in the griddle, red apron, steady eyes. On the pegboard by the register, a photo of her father, Luther, looked out in a hard hat, grin stubborn and bright. The bell trembled and then sang. Wind shouldered in. An elderly woman lurched through the swirl and caught herself on the first booth. Thin coat, shoes soaked, cheeks raw as winter apples. "Easy," Amara said. She guided the woman into the red vinyl, dragged the heater closer, and tucked a gray blanket around her shoulders. "You're safe here." The woman's hands shook. They tightened around a scuffed leather purse like a life preserver. "Just till morning," she murmured, voice old neighborhood with something older underneath. "Soup," Amara said. "Tea, then we figure the rest." Steam rose. Color returned. When the worst of the shiver ebbed, Amara crouched so their eyes met. "I'm Amara." The woman's mouth softened. "Rosa," she said. After a beat, "Bellini." The name landed and walked around. The Bellinis were a rumor everyone could draw. Their money moved through union halls and warehouses. Amara let no reaction show. Names meant less than body temperature at 2 in the morning. "You have someone to call, Rosa?" "Someone I should call," she answered, fingers welded to the purse strap. "But not yet." "We have phones when you're ready," Amara said, and set a cup of water beside the soup. They made an island of heat. Between refills, Amara phoned Mr. Peña to check his space heater and left a carton of chili on the back stoop for the shelter runner. The Bellini syllables ticked like a wristwatch. "Pretty lights," Rosa murmured, chin lifting toward the pendants. "Been hanging since the 50s, Amara said. Rosa's laugh was small, but real. When she reached for the soup again, the purse shifted. Amara glimpsed the corner of an old ledger, thick paper browned at the edge, lines tight as track. Rosa adjusted the blanket to cover it. Outside, the blizzard thickened, thinned, then breathed in again. A siren wound up and away. Rosa dozed in short, alert naps. Dawn arrived blue and late. The intersection reappeared. Amara flipped the sign to closed and brewed a fresh pot. She was rinsing the ladle when the bell struck a single note. A man stepped through the snow haze and brought the cold with him. Midnight blue suit, vest cut like a blade, hair combed back. He shook flakes from his shoulders, scanned the room, and found the blanket. "Morning," Amara said, steady. His smile was professional. "I'm looking for a woman," he said. "Rosa." Rosa's eyes opened. Her free hand moved to the purse, the other braced on the table. "Dante," he said. "Ma." Amara set herself beside the booth. "She's warming up," she said. "You can wait at the counter." He looked surprised to be managed, then amused, then agreeable. He took a stool with his back to the room. "You kept the lights on," he said. "Storms don't care about closing time," Amara answered, pouring him coffee. "Neither do we," he said softly. Rosa watched him over the bowl. "You should not have come like this." "Like what?" "With men." He didn't glance toward the window, but the look passed through him. Outside, a black SUV idled as though it had roots. Two shapes breathed behind the windshield. Amara dried her hands. "If you want him closer," she said to Rosa, "you tell me." Rosa held her gaze for a second, then nodded at the purse. "I want this safer than my pulse." "What's in it?" Dante asked, too quickly. Rosa's eyes didn't leave Amara's. "A book that remembers who got paid to forget?" Her gaze flicked to the pegboard photo of Luther Cole and back. "And the name of a good man who would not take money to be quiet." Amara felt the floor tilt. Dante set his cup down. "Ma, let's go. There's a car. You'll be warm." "We will not," Rosa said. "Not until the right ears are listening. You may sit. You may speak truth. Or you may leave." He looked at Amara, measuring the line she had drawn by simply standing still. She set the coffee pot on the center booth's formica with a decisive click. "House rules," she said. "No one moves the guest without the guest's blessing." After a moment, Dante nodded and sat across from his mother. The SUV's exhaust clouded the window. In the corner, the heater knocked pipes together like a drum. Rosa loosened the purse strap to reveal the browned corner again. "When morning is fully here," she said, "we open this, and we put its pages where snow can't bury them." Amara followed her eyes to the photo on the pegboard and felt the hook of 6 winters ago sink and pull. Whatever sat in that purse had a line tied to the night her father didn't come home. The bell stilled. The neon steadied. And the story that began with soup and a blanket leaned toward the past, waiting to say its name. Now. Smooth handoff. Next, we reveal how Luther Cole's disappearance intersects the ledger, Dante's rise, and Rosa's plan. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us keep these stories alive, and trust me, the best part is yet to come. Now let's get back to it. The storm hadn't relented. It only learned to whisper. Snow hissed against the glass like sand, soft but endless, and the diner's neon bled faintly through the frost. Open, flickering between hope and defiance. Rosa sat curled beneath her blanket, the steam from her untouched tea tracing faint ghosts between her and her son. Dante Bellini. The name still felt too sharp for the room, too clean, too deliberate. He sat across from her in the corner booth, coat draped over one shoulder, watching the snow as if calculating what it might cost to make it stop. Amara wiped the counter slower than necessary, her eyes flicking between them. She could smell the tension, the way one wrong word could make the air crack. Rosa finally broke the silence. "You shouldn't have come here." "I came because you didn't answer my calls." Dante's tone was smooth, but frayed at the edges. "Ma, you vanished for 6 months, and now you're sitting in some diner at 3 a.m. with—" He caught himself before saying a stranger. Amara didn't look up. "With a waitress," she finished for him. He smirked. "You take your job seriously." "Somebody has to." Rosa's chuckle was dry as old paper. "She takes life seriously, Dante. That's why I'm not frozen on the street." The silence after that was almost kind. Dante leaned back, studying Amara the way a man might study an unexpected variable. "I appreciate your hospitality, Miss Cole," she said. "Amara Cole." He nodded once, the name registering in his memory somewhere behind the mask of civility. Then thank you, Miss Cole. You've done us a kindness. Didn't do it for thanks. No, he said quietly. You strike me as someone who does things because they're right. That's rarer than gold in this city. Gold melts, she said. Right doesn't. Rosa smiled faintly behind her cup, and Dante's eyes flickered, caught between admiration and irritation. Amara wiped the table beside them, making a show of it. She's staying till the road's clear, she said. She's not going anywhere tonight. I can see that, he said, voice dipped in charm. But my mother's not exactly built for long nights in diners, no matter how fine the company. Rosa shot him a look that could have frozen a lesser man. You think I don't know my bones, boy? The diner's fine. The company's finer. I said sit down. Dante did, reluctantly. The hiss of the wind filled the space where family should have been. Amara poured herself coffee and leaned on the counter. You two fight like it's a second language. Rosa's eyes softened. It used to be our only one. Dante looked away, jaw tightening. My mother has a flair for the dramatic. And you have a gift for missing the point, Rosa snapped. You send men to collect debts, but not to check if I'm breathing. You run an empire of fear and call it work. He sighed, rubbing his temple. Ma, I run business, collections, contracts, cleanup. Someone has to keep the gears turning. It's not pretty, but it's order. Order built on graves, she said, tapping the purse with a bony finger. Including your father's. That silenced him. Amara set her mug down. Bellini, she said slowly. I've heard that name before. On the docks, Dante's eyes narrowed slightly. We've got contracts there. Freight, shipping, labor. Labor, she echoed. That's one word for it. Rosa glanced at her. Your people work the docks, child? My father did, Amara said, quiet but steady. Luther Cole, union steward. 6 winters ago, there was a port strike. Management wanted to cut safety protocols. The union pushed back. Then one night he didn't come home. She met Dante's eyes across the room. Cops said maybe he slipped. The river was half ice, half current. They never found him. Rosa's hands tightened on her cup. Dante looked away. I'm sorry, he said, tone unreadable. The docks are rough. Accidents happen. Accidents don't get stamped, silenced, Amara said. The word hung there. Silenced. It felt like pulling the pin on something old and dangerous. Rosa went still. Dante's gaze snapped to her, but she didn't flinch. What did you say? He asked softly. Amara didn't blink. My father's name was Luther Cole. You run collections, contracts, cleanup? That strike you cleaned up cost me a family. He inhaled, slow and careful, like a man gauging distance to a cliff. You think I ordered something like that? I think your family's fingerprints are on everything that bleeds in this city, she said. Rosa's voice trembled. Enough, both of you. Not here, but it was too late. Truth had teeth, and it was already biting. The heater clicked twice, and the diner's hum returned. Outside, the SUV engine idled closer to the curb, headlights diffused through the snow. 2 silhouettes inside. One moved, then another. Dante's gaze slid to the window, expression tightening. That's not my driver, he murmured. Rosa didn't look. Your wolves have grown too many heads, son. He reached into his coat for his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Stay inside, he told them. Amara stepped between him and the door. You'll do nothing that drags her out there. He looked at her. Really looked this time. The waitress standing guard in a red apron and sensible shoes, eyes steady enough to make armed men hesitate. "You don't know who's out there," he said. "I don't care." "I know who's in here." Rosa exhaled, a mix of exhaustion and pride. "She's right, Dante. Your kind of protection burns down the house to save a room." He pocketed the phone and sat again, jaw tight. "You think you know this city," he said to Amara. "You don't. It's built on names, every favor, every debt, names with teeth. You bite one, 10 more bite back." "Then stop feeding them," she said. Rosa's laugh cracked like kindling. "God, you remind me of myself before I got tired of surviving." The SUV lights dimmed. A shadow passed the window. Broad shoulders, cigarette glow. Dante shifted slightly, every movement measured. "Those aren't police," Amara said. "No," Dante admitted. "They're not." Rosa closed her eyes. "Then they're here for me." The diner seemed to hold its breath. Amara moved to the light switch, flicking it off to dull the glow. "We stay quiet," she said. Dante stood but didn't move closer to the door. He was calculating again. The wind, the distance, the cost of action. "They won't storm in blind," he said, "not with witnesses." "You think witnesses matter to men like that?" Amara asked. He didn't answer. Rosa reached for Amara's hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong, the skin thin but pulsing with stubborn life. "Listen to me, child," she whispered. "That purse. They can't have it. Not them, not him." Amara looked down at the leather bag, heavy and small, sitting like a loaded confession between them. "What's in it, exactly?" Rosa hesitated, then said, "Names. The kind that build cities, the kind that tear them down." "And my father's one of them," Amara said. Rosa's eyes glistened. "Yes, but he's not like the others. He stood up when no one else would. They paid to erase him." She swallowed hard. "If they take this purse, people die. Not just men with guns, innocent ones, the kind who still believe light means safety." Amara's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Outside, the silhouettes shifted again, closer now. One of them tapped ash against the glass. She looked at Dante. "You going to let them in?" He shook his head slowly. "No, not tonight." The words felt like a truce. Neither of them trusted, but both needed. The heater knocked twice. The snow eased for a heartbeat, then began again. Soft, relentless, endless. Rosa closed her eyes and whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Names have teeth, child. But truth? Truth bites back." And somewhere outside, a car door opened. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe and like this video. It helps more people discover stories like this one. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, take a deep breath, because what happens next will change everything. The storm had grown quieter, but not kinder. The snow outside the diner settled like ash, heavy and unbroken, muting the city beyond. Inside, the lights hummed above the back booth, casting the three of them in a half-circle of gold. It felt less like a diner now, and more like a confessional. Rosa Bellini sat closest to the window, her wool blanket draped like armor, the scuffed leather purse still in her lap. Across from her, Dante leaned forward, elbows on knees, expression tight enough to crack. Amara stood between them, coffee pot forgotten in her hand, the weight of something unsaid hanging in the air. "Show her," Dante said finally, voice low, deliberate. Rosa's fingers hesitated on the clasp. "You wouldn't understand." "I understand enough," he said. "You've been running with that thing like it's holy scripture." "It's not going to save you." "It's not meant to," she whispered. "It's meant to save others from you." She opened the purse. The old-world ledger emerged wrapped in brown paper, edges worn soft by time. Its leather cover was cracked, the spine frayed, but when Rosa placed it on the table, the air changed, like the diner's hum dropped to listen. She slid it toward Amara. "This," Rosa said, voice trembling but steady, "is everything the Bellini family built, and everyone they buried to build it." Amara's hand hovered above it. "You kept records?" "Not I," Rosa said. "Your city did." The men who thought paper could hide sins long enough to die rich. Vittorio made them write it down. History, he called it, every payoff, every favor. He wanted proof of his empire, even if it damned him. Dante rubbed his jaw. "My father liked trophies." Rosa's eyes cut toward him. "He liked control. And now his words will burn what he built." Amara opened the book. The paper was thick and yellowed, filled with slanted handwriting in black ink, columns of numbers, initials, badge IDs, company names. Every page felt alive, humming with the weight of men's secrets. "Council aids," Amara murmured, scanning the list. "Construction permits, trucking routes, police divisions." Her voice slowed. "Union payouts." Rosa nodded. The unions were where it began. Protection money dressed up as grievance settlements. They paid both sides of the fight and pocketed the peace. Dante's tone was bitter. "It worked." "It killed," Rosa corrected. Amara turned another page and froze. Her father's name sat neatly between two entries for freight contracts. Luther Cole, payout refused, silenced. The signature beneath it read, Vittorio Bellini. The letters blurred for a moment before Amara realized her eyes were wet. Her hand clenched around the edge of the ledger until the paper crinkled. Rosa reached across the table, her voice soft. "I wanted to spare you that." "Spare me?" Amara's voice cracked, then steadied, sharp as ice. "You think there's mercy in hiding it? You think it hurts less not knowing who signed my father's death?" Dante looked away, guilt flickering across his face like passing headlights. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Amara turned to him, disbelief and fury braided together. "You ran his docks, his trucks, his men. You knew enough." "I was 20, Dante said. "My father ruled everything. I kept my head down, did what I was told." "So you were part of it," she said. He didn't deny it. "Yes, I was part of it. Because that's how you survive in a family like mine. You keep your mouth shut and your hands busy." "And the blood?" she asked. "You just wash that off at night?" His jaw tightened. "It's never washed off." The wind outside rattled the window. For a moment, none of them spoke. Only the low hiss of the heater filled the silence, and the snow pressing against the glass. Rosa closed the ledger gently, folding her hands over it. "Vittorio's been dead 10 years, but his shadow still pays rent." Dante's tried to live inside it, pretending he's cleaner than the men who came before him. But blood doesn't fade. It ferments. Dante looked up at his mother. "You think this ledger redeems you? You think the law cares about ghosts? I think it cares about proof," she said. "And this is proof. Enough to end the Bellinis for good." Amara wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, the grief cooling into something harder, purer. "Then we end it," she said. Rosa looked at her with something close to reverence. "Child, you don't know what that means." "It means no one else's father gets erased," Amara said. "It means the machine stops spinning." Dante leaned forward, voice rough. "You think the machine cares if you shout at it? This city runs on those names. You tear out the gears, you'll grind half of Buffalo into rubble. Innocent people will go down with it." Amara met his stare without flinching. "You mean people who got rich pretending not to see?" The corners of his mouth twitched, Not quite a smile, not quite defeat. You've got your father's stubbornness. I hope so, she said. He stood up when everyone else ducked. Rosa's voice broke the tension. The question isn't whether it ends, Dante. It's whether you help end it or die protecting it. He stared at the ledger, the inked confession of a man he once called hero. You think I can just walk away? That ledger gets out, and every deal I ever made turns to ash. The family will come for me too. They already have, Rosa said softly, nodding toward the window. The SUV outside hadn't moved, but now the headlights were off. Only the faint ember of a cigarette glowed within. Dante's eyes flicked to it, then to the door. His fingers drummed once against the formica before stilling. Those aren't outsiders, he said. They're mine. Rosa's breath hitched. Your men? They don't take orders from me anymore, he said. They take them from whoever thinks I've lost my edge. Amara closed the ledger and slid it across the table toward Rosa. Then you'd better decide whose side you're on before that door opens. Dante's gaze met hers. You don't understand what's in that book. It's not just numbers, it's leverage against cops, mayors, judges. You expose it, you don't just bring down criminals, you bring down the city's balance. Chaos replaces corruption. Amara's voice was quiet but steady. Good. Maybe chaos will clean what order buried. Rosa smiled faintly. She's right, Dante. Sometimes you have to burn the roots before new things grow. He stared at them both, the waitress and the old woman, allies in a war he hadn't planned to fight. And for the first time, he looked tired. Not cautious, not calculating, just human. If I help you, he said, there's no going back. My men, the cops on the take, the council, they'll all turn on us. Amara met his gaze. Then let them. He leaned back, exhaling. You sound like my father's worst nightmare. And maybe your best chance, she said. The words hung between them like smoke. Rosa opened the ledger again, turning to the page where Luther Cole's name sat, then flipped forward. More names, more signatures. Some Amara recognized from the news. Others belonged to ghosts. Councilman Harris, Chief Inspector Donnelly, the same trucking union Dante once managed. How did you even get this? Amara asked. Rosa's voice was thin but sharp. Because men like Vittorio never thought women like me remembered things. He'd dictate payments after dinner. I'd take notes for his bookkeeper, to help his old mind. When he died, they burned the copies, not realizing I'd kept the original. Amara blinked. You've had this all these years? I've had it, Rosa said, and I've feared it. Until tonight. Dante rubbed a hand over his face. So this was your plan? To sit in a diner and wait for the storm to hide your reckoning? Rosa looked at him. To hide? Number. To reveal. The storm brings silence. Silence carries truth farther than gunfire. Outside, the SUV doors clicked open, 2 dull thuds swallowed by snow. Dante froze. They're coming. Rosa gathered the ledger, wrapping it quickly back in brown paper. You keep your voice low, she said to Amara. If they see this, they'll kill for it. Amara reached for the coffee pot again, forcing her hands not to shake. Then we make them believe it's nothing. Dante moved toward the door, but Rosa's voice stopped him. Sit, she commanded. They'll smell fear before they see it. Through the frosted glass, 2 shapes emerged, trudging toward the entrance, shoulders hunched, hands buried deep in their coats. Amara's breath fogged in front of her. What do we do? She whispered. Rosa's eyes didn't leave the door. We wait, she said. And we pray the storm's still loud enough to cover the sound of names biting back. The bell over the door gave a single, trembling ring. The diner had gone still. too still. The heater clicked, the lights trembled, and outside, the storm slowed to a lazy drift that felt more like watching than weather. Snow collected along the window seams, sealing the world into silence. Dante Bellini stood near the entrance, every muscle wired tight. Rosa sat at the booth, clutching the purse against her ribs, her eyes fixed on the frosted glass where two shapes moved toward the door. Amara could hear the faint squeak of their shoes over the crunch of ice. When the bell finally chimed, two men entered. They weren't strangers to Dante. One was broad-shouldered with a silver chain glinting under his collar. Luca, a man who'd once guarded Dante's flank during every high-risk pickup. The other, thinner, with hollow cheeks and an expensive coat dusted white, was Marino, the kind who smiled at funerals and meant it. Both carried the kind of confidence that came from knowing they didn't need to draw their guns to control a room. "Evening, boss," Luca said, brushing snow from his sleeves. "Heard you were looking for family." Dante didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." Marino smiled faintly. "Funny, we could say the same." Rosa's eyes narrowed. "They're not here for greetings." Luca's gaze slid to the purse. "Word is, Ma Bellini's been walking around with old paper." Dangerous habit in this weather. "Leave her out of it," Dante said. "She's done nothing wrong." Marino chuckled. "You sure about that?" "We get calls from up top saying she's keeping things that don't belong to her, things that could hurt the family. So here's the fix. We take the lady, take the book, everyone stays breathing. Simple." "Simple," Dante echoed. "That's what you call walking into a diner and threatening my mother?" "You're not giving orders anymore, Dante," Luca said, his voice dipping low. "You've been soft." Too many questions lately, too much hesitation. Vittorio would have never allowed this circus. At that name, Rosa stiffened. Dante took a slow step forward. "Careful what you say about my father." "Why?" Marino asked. "He's the reason any of us still have paychecks." "You? You've been talking exit like it's a prayer. You know what happens to people who start praying in this family. They get buried next to the saints." Amara's pulse quickened. She moved to the few remaining customers, an old couple and a delivery driver, whispering for them to head toward the kitchen. "Storm door," she said under her breath. "Go out back when I tell you." She guided them gently, quietly, and when they were out of sight, she turned the lock on the side door with a soft click. Rosa noticed. "Good girl," she murmured. Dante, still between the men and the booth, raised a hand. "You've made your point. Now walk out before you make it worse." Marino's eyes darted to the back window, fogged but faintly glowing from the streetlight. "You forget, Dante. You're not the only one with orders." "I didn't give any," Dante said. "Exactly." Luca took a step forward. "That's the problem." The heater clicked again, loud as a gunshot in the quiet. Amara came back from the counter, moving like a shadow, sliding behind Rosa's booth. "You boys planning to eat something?" she asked evenly. "Or just stink up my diner with bad intentions?" Luca glanced at her, almost amused. "You got guts, sweetheart." "I've got a frying pan, too," she said, gripping the handle near her hip. Rosa's mouth twitched. "Like mother, like son," she muttered. Marino ignored the exchange. "We'll take the ledger," he said, "and Ma comes with us for safekeeping. Nobody else gets hurt." Rosa spoke before Dante could. "You mean silenced?" Luca smiled thinly. "We don't like that word. Too final." Dante's voice dropped low. "You touch her, and I'll end every one of you myself." Marino's smirk faded. "That's the thing, Dante. You don't get to talk like a capo when you've already quit the table." Amara's voice cut through the tension. "Then maybe you should sit back down before you say something stupid." All three men turned toward her. She didn't flinch. Rosa shifted slightly, her hand brushing Amara's arm. "Let me talk." Amara leaned down. "They're not here to talk." "Then we give them something they don't expect." Dante looked between them. "You have an idea?" Rosa gave a small, grim smile. "I always do." She turned to Luca and Marino. "You think killing me keeps you safe? You think burying paper makes ghosts disappear? You've learned nothing from the last generation." Marino frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning," she said softly. "You're not the first Bellini men to underestimate a woman in a church cellar." That made them hesitate. Dante looked at her sharply. What are you talking about?" Rosa's gaze remained fixed on the men. 30 years ago, your father's crew chased a federal witness into Holy Cross Parish. A priest begged me to hide the man. Vittorio said, 'Let him hang.' I didn't. I locked him beneath the altar and told the feds 2 hours later. They took him. He lived. And one of them, a young assistant U.S. attorney, told me, 'If you ever need a favor, Mrs. Bellini, call this number.'" She looked at Dante now. "It's time to use it." For a moment, no one breathed. Even the storm outside seemed to listen. Marino recovered first. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Rosa said. She pulled a crumpled scrap from her purse and slid it across the table to Dante. "Call it." Dante hesitated. The number was old, faded, maybe obsolete, but something in Rosa's eyes told him she believed it still mattered. He dialed. The ringtone cut through the diner like a ticking clock. A voice answered on the third ring, smooth, deep, practiced. "Assistant U.S. Attorney Palmer." Dante didn't blink. "This is Dante Bellini. I'm calling in an old favor owed to Rosa Bellini. She says you'll remember the church." A pause. Then the voice changed, warmth wrapped in control. "Mrs. Bellini." "It's been a long time." Rosa leaned closer to the receiver. "Too long. I need sanctuary. And witnesses. Tonight." The voice smiled through the line. "You always did have a flair for drama. Are you safe?" "For now." Marino snorted. "This is a waste." Dante silenced him with a glance and kept his focus on the call. "You can get us out?" Palmer's tone was measured. "That depends on what you're bringing me." Rosa's hand tightened on the purse. "Evidence. Names. Every one of them dirty." Marino shifted uncomfortably. Luca glanced at him. "Evidence?" Palmer repeated. "Careful with that word, Mrs. Bellini. It makes enemies faster than friends." Amara frowned. "That's an odd thing for a prosecutor to say." Palmer chuckled lightly. "I'm just reminding her how delicate things are." "Tell me where you are, Dante. I'll send someone trustworthy." Dante hesitated. Something in that smoothness felt off, too polished. "We're fine here," he said slowly. "For now." Rosa slid the ledger from her purse, flipping to a page of badge numbers and initials. She ran a finger down the column. "Palmer," she said softly. "Ask him about badge number 4732. Dante repeated it into the phone. "You know anyone tied to badge 4732? The pause on the other end was long enough to raise goosebumps. Then came the careful answer. "Can't say I do." "Why?" Rosa's voice was a whisper, cold and certain. "Because that badge belongs to your golf partner, Assistant Palmer." Detective Donnelly. The air in the diner seemed to vanish. Palmer's voice hardened instantly. "I think this line's no longer secure." "Don't call back." The click was sharp as a gunshot. Silence fell. Marino laughed under his breath. "You really thought the feds were your salvation? They're in deeper than any of us." Rosa closed the ledger with a soft thud. Then the old world and the new one drink from the same poisoned well. Dante stood slowly, eyes distant, voice hollow. He was my way out. Amara looked between them, then toward the window. The SUV was still there, engine off, silhouettes motionless, waiting. Rosa's words came quiet but fierce. "Then we make another door." The wind sighed against the glass, and the storm outside began to move again, not roaring, but whispering, as if the city itself knew the wolves had found new scent. And this time, they were coming. The storm had quieted to a whisper, but inside the silver comet, thunder was building. Rosa's hands trembled around the ledger. Dante stood near the door, shoulders squared, watching the SUV through the frosted window. The two silhouettes still waited, unmoving, their patience more dangerous than any weapon. Amara leaned against the counter, the old rotary phone hanging uselessly off the hook. The last call had told them everything. They were alone. The assistant U.S. attorney, Palmer, was compromised. The men outside were waiting for orders. The law was no longer a lifeline. "We can't trust anyone," Amara said. "Not him, not them. Not anyone who wears a badge." Rosa nodded slowly, her voice low but clear. "Then we take this beyond them." Dante turned. "Beyond who? My men? The family?" "Beyond the shadows," Amara said. "We put the truth where it can't be buried." Rosa's eyes met hers, steady and knowing. "Public, not private," she murmured. Amara's gaze fell on the pie case behind the counter, its glass cracked from the storm's pressure, a half-eaten cherry pie glistening beneath the light. Next to it sat her phone, dead, useless, but a thought sparked. "Rosa," she said, "you said you hid that witness in Holy Cross Parish. Do you still have contacts around here? Someone who'd still help you?" Rosa shook her head. "The good ones died or left. But the city's kids, some of them listen." Amara moved to the back kitchen, where a small radio hummed faintly. She dug through the drawer, pulled out a card, a delivery slip from Tyrell Streams Parker, the local food vlogger who lived down the street. He'd streamed her cooking once, the diner that stayed open through storms. He had thousands of followers in Buffalo alone. She grabbed the wired phone from the wall and dialed the number scribbled on the card. "Yo, Comet, that you? Power's flickering out here. You still open?" Tyrell's voice came through with a chuckle. "Tyrell," she said quickly, "I need your phone." A pause. "You okay?" "Bring it here. Now. And keep your camera running." Whatever he heard in her tone stopped the jokes. "On my way." When she hung up, Dante looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're calling a kid? You think this is a game?" Amara stepped forward, fierce and calm. "Your men control the alleys, Palmer controls the courts, and your family controls the press. The only people left who aren't bought are the ones streaming from their basements. You wanted a way out, Dante? This is it." He stared at her, then exhaled, half a laugh, half disbelief. "You're going to live stream a mob war?" Rosa smiled faintly. "No, son. She's going to live stream the truth." Minutes later, the bell above the door jingled, and Tyrell slipped in, hood up, snow dripping from his jacket. His phone was already recording. "Yo, Miss Amara, this storm's wild. You okay?" "Not yet," she said, "but you're about to help me fix that." She propped the phone by the pie case, angled just right to catch the booth, the ledger, and the three of them. The screen glowed faintly in the dim light, comments already trickling in. "Buffalo Diner? Late night stream?" someone typed. "What's going on?" said another. Amara brushed her apron and looked into the lens. "My name is Amara Cole. I'm a waitress at the Silver Comet Diner. If you're watching this, stay on. What I'm about to show you might save lives and end a few careers." Rosa looked at her with quiet pride. Amara opened the ledger, laying it flat beneath the phone's camera. "This book," she said, "is the Bellini family ledger. It holds names, council members, cops, union bosses, who've been taking bribes and silencing people for decades." She began to read. Page 12, Councilman Harris, 10,000, zoning approval for waterfront property. Badge 4732, Detective Donnelly, protection fee. Luther Cole, payout refused. Marked silenced. The live chat exploded. "Wait, Luther Cole? The union guy who disappeared? My uncle worked that dock strike. Donnelly's still on the force." Tyrell's phone vibrated with pings. Hearts and shocked emojis filled the screen. Rosa whispered, "They're listening." Amara didn't stop. "This isn't just about money. It's about who decides which lives are worth protecting." She flipped another page. Port contract bribes, waste management deals, campaign donations from shell accounts. Every name written here had a choice, and they chose corruption. Dante stepped behind her, jaw set. "They'll come for us now." "They already were," she said. Outside, the SUV headlights flared once, then dimmed again. Luca and Marino were watching the stream from their phones. Amara could feel it. The men in the car were caught between two kinds of orders, one from their boss and one from the world suddenly watching. The viewer count surged. 2,000, 5,000, 12,000. Then a new comment appeared. "Turn that off. You don't know who you're messing with." Rosa's eyes narrowed. "Palmer." The phone buzzed again, this time a call request. Amara answered without flinching, putting it on speaker. The AUSA's voice filled the room, smooth as glass but sharp underneath. "Miss Cole, you need to stop this immediately. You're interfering in an ongoing investigation." Amara glanced at the phone camera, voice steady. "Then come shut it down on camera." Palmer hesitated. "You're making a dangerous mistake." "The mistake was thinking people like you could keep pretending to protect us," she said. Rosa added, "You were supposed to be my friend, Palmer." Palmer sighed. "And I was. Once. But this is bigger than you realize." Amara raised her chin. "Not anymore. The people know now. The chat was a frenzy. Tag the news. Record everything. Bellini family trending #1. Tyrell's voice shook slightly. "You got 40,000 viewers now." Dante moved to the window. The SUV doors opened, but the men didn't move forward. They were hesitating, watching. Palmer's tone grew desperate. "Turn it off or someone will get hurt." Amara stared into the lens. "If anything happens to us, this stream doesn't stop. Tyrell, upload the full recording to every platform, every name, every page." Tyrell swallowed. "Already backed up." Palmer's calm cracked. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." Amara's voice was soft but cold. "Neither do you." Then, from outside, the echo of a car door slamming. Dante's eyes snapped to the window. "They're moving." The live chat froze for a heartbeat, then resumed. Someone wrote, "Who's outside?" "Are those cops?" "Stay back," Dante said, reaching for the counter's emergency bat. "They might try the back door." Amara checked the stream one last time. "Keep rolling, Tyrell, no matter what happens." He nodded, gripping his phone like a lifeline. The power flickered once, twice. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the diner, followed by a single loud bang. Not gunfire, but the sound of the electrical panel blowing near the rear. The phones went dead, except for Tyrell's battery-powered stream still glowing in the dark. The only light left came from the humming gas hobs in the kitchen and the faint flicker of candles Rosa had lit hours earlier. Amara's heartbeat filled her ears. "They killed the power," Dante said. Rosa's voice, calm and ancient, cut through the dark. "Then let them come into the light." The stream's camera adjusted automatically, casting their faces in soft, trembling glow. Outside, boots crunched on snow. Two shadows moved closer. Tyrell whispered, "Miss Amara?" "Keep it steady," she said. "They wanted private? We give them public." The bell over the door jingled once, sharp as breaking glass. Then, silence. The diner was a heartbeat away from collapse. The storm outside had gathered strength again, rattling the windows like fists on glass, but it was the silence inside that suffocated, the kind that comes before someone decides whether to kill or to walk away. Only the glow of a few candles and the blue shimmer of Tyrell's streaming phone lit the silver comet. Snow pressed against the windows. The comments on the live stream scrolled endlessly across the screen. Hearts, warnings, prayers. Somewhere, someone was recording, archiving every breath they took. Rosa Bellini sat at the center booth, the old ledger open like a holy relic on the formica table. Amara stood behind her, one hand on Rosa's shoulder, the other resting near the heavy coffee pot. The same pot that had poured warmth into strangers' cups for years, now gleaming like a weapon under the candlelight. Dante Bellini stood opposite, between the women and the door, his eyes flicking toward the shapes that had begun to move outside the fogged glass. "Stay back," he said, voice low. The bell jingled once. Two men stepped inside, the door closing behind them like the lid of a coffin. Luca and Marino again. Dante's men, but not anymore. Their faces were shadowed, their coats damp, but the air around them carried something colder than the snow. Their hands hung close to their sides, fingers twitching where guns slept in holsters. "Guess we're trending," Marino said with a smirk, nodding at Tyrell's phone. "You always did love attention, boss." Dante's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have come." Luca tilted his head. "You left us no choice. The family's bleeding out, and the word upstairs is you're the one holding the knife." Rosa's voice, cracked but sharp, cut through the tension. "He's holding the truth." "You mistake that for betrayal because you've never known the difference." Marino sneered. "Truth doesn't keep lights on, lady. Money does. Fear does." Amara slid the coffee pot forward across the table. Slow, deliberate, the scrape echoing like a boundary line being drawn. "Then maybe you're about to find out what happens when fear runs out." The men shifted. Luca's hand twitched toward his coat. Dante's voice stopped him cold. "Don't." For a moment, only the storm spoke. The wind keened through the doorframe, and the flame on the counter candle flickered like a pulse. Dante took a single step forward, standing directly between his mother and his men. "I told you once, no one touches her." Marino laughed softly. "And what are you going to do? Shoot us? The whole city's watching you play house with your mother and a waitress? You think the bosses are going to forgive this circus?" Dante didn't answer. Instead, he reached across the table and placed his hand on the ledger. "Everyone's watching," he said. "Good." Rosa's hand brushed his. "Dante." He looked down at her. "You said once that paper can bury men. Tonight it buries me too." Then he turned toward the live stream, the camera light catching the exhaustion carved into his face. "My name is Dante Bellini. I was the collections and enforcement officer for the Bellini organization for 11 years. I'm surrendering evidence and testimony, mine." The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Outside, tires squealed. For the first time, real sirens wailed through the storm, the kind that weren't metaphors, the kind that meant blue lights were cutting through whiteout. Luca blinked, panic cracking through his practiced calm. What did you do? Dante didn't move. I told the truth. Marino grabbed his arm. You think the cops outside are here for us? You called the feds into a family storm, and they'll drown you first. Amara stepped closer, voice calm but firm. If you run, the stream keeps rolling. If you stay, maybe you walk out clean. Your choice. Luca hesitated. The headlights outside were multiplying now, flashing red and blue in the drifting snow. Somewhere in the distance, engines idled. Marino's composure cracked. They'll kill us all for this. Then go, Dante said. You had your chance to be men. I'll settle for being human. The two lieutenants exchanged a look. The candlelight painted their faces gold, the kind of color reserved for saints and sinners seconds before confession. Then Luca turned towards the door. You never saw us, he muttered, and the two vanished into the snow. The bell jingled once, twice, then the diner was still again. Dante exhaled, shaking his head. It's done. No, Amara said softly. It's just starting. Through the glass, the flashing lights were closer now. Federal SUVs replaced the black ones. Officers moved like ghosts through the storm, measured, silent, deliberate. Rosa's gaze didn't leave her son. You made the right choice, she said. He almost smiled. That's the first time you've said that to me. The door opened again, this time slow, careful. A tall man stepped through, shaking snow from his overcoat. He wore no visible badge, but authority radiated from his every movement. His voice was calm, practiced, and dangerous in its politeness. Mr. Bellini, he said, I'm Special Counsel Palmer. Rosa's eyes narrowed. You again. The AUSA's smile didn't reach his eyes. You called, Mrs. Bellini. I came. Dante squared his shoulders. You're late. Traffic, Palmer said dryly. And the small matter of watching your little live stream. Quite a show. I suggest we move this conversation somewhere private. Amara stepped between him and the booth. No more private talks. Everything that needs saying stays in the light. Palmer's gaze flicked toward her, assessing. You must be Miss Cole. The waitress who decided to play journalist? Amara didn't blink. No. The daughter of Luther Cole, the man your badge numbers paid to silence. That made him pause, the smallest flicker of recognition cutting through his mask. You've been busy, Rosa's voice rasped. She's earned her say. Palmer straightened, his tone turning official. Mr. Bellini, if you're serious about testifying, we need to discuss the terms of cooperation. Alone. Rosa slammed her palm on the formica. The sound snapped through the room. With her, or not at all? The storm howled as if punctuating her defiance. Palmer arched an eyebrow. That's not how these things work. Rosa stood slowly, the candlelight catching the silver in her hair. Then maybe that's why they've never worked at all. For a heartbeat, the room froze. The old woman, the crime heir, the waitress, and the man who wore law like perfume. Terrell's camera was still rolling. The comments kept coming, faster, louder. Let her speak! Justice for Luther Cole. Don't trust that suit. Outside, the sirens blared louder, closer. Backup had arrived. Dante's voice broke the tension. We do this together, he said. No more backroom deals. You want testimony? You get it here, in front of everyone. Palmer's calm slipped. This isn't a courtroom. Dante gestured at the booth. It is tonight. Rosa smiled faintly. Formica's as good as marble when the truth's on it. Palmer exhaled slowly. Fine. You want spectacle? You'll get it. He pulled out a recorder and set it on the table. Then start talking, Mr. Bellini. Everything. Dante glanced at Amara, then at his mother. You sure? Rosa nodded once. Say it all. He began. Dates, deals, names, every payoff, every silenced union head, every order that bore his father's handwriting. As he spoke, the storm's second band roared outside, rattling the windows like applause from ghosts. Amara listened, heart pounding, tears silent but burning. The ledger's pages glowed under candlelight, evidence now immortalized not just in ink, but in truth broadcast to thousands. When Dante finished, Palmer leaned forward, voice low. You realize this destroys you, your family, everything. Dante nodded. Then maybe something better can grow in its place. For the first time, Palmer looked uncertain. He reached for the recorder and froze when Rosa's hand came down over it. You don't leave without her, she said, nodding toward Amara. She stays. Palmer looked between them, calculating. That's not protocol. Neither is mercy, Rosa replied. Outside, the sirens stopped. The world was waiting. The camera's red light blinked steadily, recording the impossible. A mob prince choosing conscience over blood, a waitress drawing a line with a coffee pot, and an old woman forcing the law to listen. Palmer's jaw tightened. Very well, he said finally. With her. Amara exhaled. Rosa's hand found hers beneath the table, and as the candles guttered in the wind, the silver comet became a courtroom, one where truth, for the first time in years, was louder than fear. The snowstorm finally broke at dawn, but the city was still holding its breath. The Silver Comet diner sat in a ring of police tape, its neon sign sputtering against the pale sky. Cameras flashed outside as federal agents moved in and out, photographing the counter, the ledger, the melted candles that had burned through the night. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and smoke. Truth, freshly brewed and dangerous. Rosa watched as the agents handled her ledger with gloved precision. Every page was scanned, time-stamped, and sealed in clear evidence bags. A young officer announced each step for the live stream still running on Tyrell's feed. Chain of custody confirmed. One ledger, 73 pages, itemized signatures. Dante stood nearby, pale under the fluorescent lights. His midnight blue suit looked out of place in the chaos. He signed a final form with a shaking hand. Bellini, Dante A., witness number 149. His old title, Capo, Enforcer, Heir, was gone. What remained was a man stripped to truth. Amara kept her distance, standing by the counter that had become her front-row seat to revolution. Every click of a pen, every rustle of a plastic sleeve felt like a verdict for the entire city. When the agents finished, Palmer, the AUSA, spoke into a recorder. Evidence received. Witness in custody. Secondary party, Mrs. Rosa Bellini, to a company for protection. Rosa's face softened with weary pride. Protection, she repeated quietly, as though the word were an unfamiliar kindness. Before they left, she turned to Amara. You gave this city its conscience back, she said. Don't let them take it again. Amara squeezed her hand. Then you make sure they keep it. For a long moment, Rosa's eyes lingered on her son. Keep her safe, Dante. I'll try, he said. For once, I'll do something right. Then they were gone, led out through the back, escorted by federal cars that vanished into the storm-scarred streets. The cameras followed until the snow swallowed their taillights. The days that followed moved like a montage of reckoning. Headlines screamed across Buffalo: Bellini empire crumbles, ledger leak topples, City Hall, witness named in historic racket case. Subpoenas bloomed like spring flowers through winter's rot. 3 of Dante's lieutenants flipped before the week ended. 2 councilmen resigned before their mugshots could circulate. A precinct captain was walked out in cuffs, his badge tucked into an evidence envelope marked Donnelly 4732. Every news broadcast replayed the same footage, Amara's trembling voice reading from the ledger, Rosa's weathered hands turning pages, Dante's confession under candlelight. The city that had learned to look away was forced to watch. By the third week, Dante Bellini disappeared into protective custody. No press, no photos, just a one-line statement. Cooperating witness relocated for safety. Rosa went with him, her name redacted, but her legend already etched in whispers, the mob matriarch who turned her own family in. The diner reopened 2 days later. The booths were empty. The coffee urn hissed like it remembered. Amara stood behind the counter and looked at the seat where Rosa had sat. The seat that had become a confessional, a courtroom, a bridge between worlds. Customers trickled back slowly. Dock workers, night nurses, cab drivers. None spoke of what had happened, but every tip jar coin felt like a thank you. Terrell stopped by once, grinning nervously. "You're a hero, Miss Amara. The internet's calling you the Blizzard Witness." She smiled faintly. "Heroes sleep at night. I'm just awake." When the rush ended, she sat alone with a cup of coffee gone cold. The diner hummed with its usual ghosts, the buzz of the fridge, the whisper of wind through the door seal, the echo of Rosa's voice. Public, not private. That's when she saw it, an envelope on the counter, cream-colored, stamped with a federal seal. No return address, only her name typed cleanly. Cole, Amara. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet, signed in heavy black ink. Sworn statement, witness 149, Dante Bellini. It read, "Luther Cole refused the payout offered to end the dock strike of 2019. My father, Vittorio Bellini, ordered his removal. I carried that order. I did not pull the trigger, but I paid the man who did. His death was called an accident to protect our system. I write this so the truth lives somewhere beyond me. For Rosa, who taught me conscience. For Amara, who reminded me it still existed." At the bottom, a small note, handwritten, "Tell your mother he was brave till the end." Amara read it twice, the words dissolving into tears she hadn't allowed for 6 years. Outside, the storm clouds were thinning, letting a wash of pale sunlight spill over the street. She folded the letter carefully, slipped it into the diner's register beside a faded photo of her father in his dock jacket, smiling, sleeves rolled. Then she unlocked the door, flipped the sign from closed to open, and let the morning light flood in. The neighborhood was still quiet, still unsure if justice meant safety or just another kind of storm. But for the first time in years, Amara felt the city breathe. The bell above the door jingled. A regular stepped in, shivering, asking for coffee. She poured it. Steady hands, steady heart. As the man sat, he pointed to the old booth. "That where it happened?" Amara nodded. "That's where it started." He smiled softly. "You keeping it like that?" "For now," she said. "Some seats earn their silence." When he left, she turned the radio up just loud enough to drown the wind. News anchors were still talking about indictments, plea deals, restitution funds for dock workers, words she'd never thought she'd hear outside her own dreams. Then a gust of wind rattled the windows, playful this time, not threatening. The bell jingled again, and for a moment Amara thought she saw Rosa's reflection in the glass, smiling, shawl around her shoulders, eyes proud. She blinked, and it was gone. Only the sound of the coffee pot refilling, steady as a heartbeat, remained. The city outside was changing, messy, slow, but real. And somewhere out there, under a new name, Dante Bellini was learning what it meant to start again. Amara looked down at her father's letter one last time, before tucking it into her apron pocket. The snow had melted, But the truth, she thought, would never wash away. Then she whispered to the empty diner, "Rest now, Daddy. They finally heard you." And as the clock struck noon, the silver comet hummed back to life. Spring came slowly that year, as if the city was afraid to believe in warmth again. Snowmelt ran down the gutters of Jefferson Avenue, carrying away the last grit of winter, the last shadows of fear. The silver comet's windows were open for the first time in months, letting in sunlight that turned the chrome counters into ribbons of gold. Amara stood behind them, polishing the same coffee pot that had once divided life and death. Now it gleamed like proof that things could be remade. The letter lay folded in her apron pocket, the sworn statement that had rewritten everything. Dante's words had gone public through the court files, but she kept her copy close, the ink beginning to smudge from her fingers. Every line was both wound and closure. Luther Cole refused a payoff. Vittorio Bellini ordered his removal. A badge turned away. The day she told her mother, the world seemed to pause. They met at the cemetery, the thaw turning the ground soft underfoot. Her mother, Grace, wore her Sunday coat, though it was a Wednesday. The headstone still bore the false story. Lost to the lake, 2019. Amara knelt, tracing the faded letters with her thumb. "He wasn't lost," she said quietly. "They silenced him." Her mother's breath trembled in the cold air. "I always knew," she whispered, "but knowing isn't the same as hearing it from their mouths." Amara unfolded the statement, the seal at the bottom catching the sunlight. He said Dad refused. That he stood his ground. Even when he knew what would happen. Grace's eyes filled, but her voice was steady. "Then we give him a real marker." Together they chose the words, carved simple and clean a week later. Luther Cole, 1970 to 2019. He stood for truth. Truth tends the grave. When the new stone was set, Amara placed a cup of coffee at its base. Black, no sugar, the way he'd always liked it. The wind moved gently through the thawing trees, and for the first time she felt the grave wasn't a place of loss, but of return. 2 months later, a letter came with a government seal and a check attached. Restitution. Part of a compensation program for victims of labor corruption. It wasn't much by federal standards, but to the neighborhood, it was enough to start a heartbeat. Amara didn't cash it for days. She left it under the register, afraid that spending it might undo its meaning. But when the old owner of the Silver Comet decided to retire, the decision came easy. She bought the diner with the restitution and added to it with a neighborhood loan pool. The same dock workers her father had once defended chipping in small bills and folded notes. The day she signed the deed, she brought her mother to see the new sign out front. The Silver Comet, owned and operated by Amara Cole. Grace smiled through tears. "He'd be proud," she said. Amara nodded. "Then let's make sure pride pays forward." She hired locals, the kids who used to loiter at the corner, the widows from the Union Hall, a few old-timers who remembered when the diner was a city landmark. And every winter storm night, she kept the lights on for free soup and heat. No questions asked. She called it second chance nights. The first time the snow came again, people arrived shivering but smiling. She served them bowls of stew under the same humming lights that had once flickered over chaos. The bell over the door didn't sound like a warning anymore. It sounded like welcome. Rosa Bellini returned only once. It was a gray afternoon in early summer. 2 plain sedans pulled up across the street, and a man in a dark suit stepped out first, scanning the block before opening the back door. Rosa emerged slowly, shawl draped over her shoulders, her eyes as sharp as ever. Amara met her at the door, half disbelief, half joy. "You came." Rosa smiled. "Paperwork," she said, holding up a folder. "Old debts to settle before the road turns too long." They sat in the corner booth, the same one that had held the ledger, the candles, the confession. Rosa ordered tea, though she barely touched it. "You kept your promise," Rosa said, watching Amara sign the last form. "The place looks alive." "It is," Amara said. "People eat here without fear now." Rosa chuckled. "That's rarer than good food." They sat in silence for a while, the hum of conversation around them soft and warm. Then Rosa leaned forward. "Let me teach you something my father taught me. If you want to know if someone's lying, don't look at their eyes. Eyes learn to pretend. Look at their hands, they never do." Amara smiled. "You think I'll need that?" Rosa's gaze drifted toward the window. The world doesn't stop lying just because one truth got told. A shadow of sadness crossed her face then, something unspoken, old as regret. "When you left that night," Amara asked, "why here? Why this diner?" Rosa reached across the table, fingers brushing Amara's hand. "Because I'd been watching you for months. You always kept the lights on for strangers. You didn't judge who deserved warmth." Amara frowned. "So you weren't lost?" Rosa's smile deepened, soft and secret. "I didn't get lost, child. I chose your light." The words landed like a benediction. For a long moment, neither spoke. The street outside buzzed faintly with new life. Kids on bikes, a delivery truck, laughter from the laundromat. Buffalo was breathing again. Rosa finished her tea, set a few bills on the table, and stood. "Keep this place safe," she said. "The city needs one honest corner." Amara followed her to the door. The agents waited beside the cars, but Rosa turned once before leaving, her shawl catching the breeze. "You did what men twice your size couldn't," she said. "You made them see." Then she was gone, folded back into the quiet protection of a new life. Amara stood for a moment, watching the cars disappear into the late afternoon light. The air smelled of rain and roasted coffee, clean and alive. She went back inside, tied on her apron, and picked up the coffee pot. The bell over the door chimed again, a regular coming in from the street. "You serving today?" he asked. "Always," she said, "storm or shine." And as she poured his cup, the steam rose like memory, like prayer, like proof that truth, once spoken, never really leaves. The first snow came early that year, soft, hesitant, as if testing whether the city had finally earned its peace. The silver comet no longer blinked in neon. Its new sign, "Second Chance," hung in clean metal letters above the door, warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. Inside, the hum of quiet conversation mingled with the clink of mugs and the faint hiss of soup simmering on the back stove. The booth by the window had been restored but left untouched in spirit. A small brass plate now marked the spot, "Nana's Corner. Free soup, no questions asked." Rosa's old seat stayed open for anyone who needed it. Tonight, a man in a faded delivery jacket sat there, eating slowly, shoulders thawing as steam rose from his bowl. Amara moved between tables, her red apron dusted with flour, her curls tied back the way they'd been that first winter. "Everything all right?" she asked him gently. He nodded, smiling into his meal. "Best soup in Buffalo." "Then you're in the right place," she said. The bell above the door chimed again. Laughter, coats shaking off snow, the sound of community instead of chaos. Across the room, Mr. Peña sat with his cane propped against the booth, tapping in rhythm to an old soul song on the radio. He was walking better now, the limp almost gone. Every Thursday he came in for black coffee and half a slice of cherry pie. Doctor's orders be damned. Near the counter, 2 dock workers from the union Amara's father had once fought for were signing new contracts, real ones this time, stamped and witnessed. One of them caught her glance through the pass window and lifted his cup in salute. She smiled back, thinking of Luther Cole's grave, the new stone gleaming beneath the frost. Truth tends the grave. It had become her silent motto, the thing that powered the diner through the long nights. By late evening, the dinner rush faded into the soft clatter of cleanup. The radio murmured low. The snow outside thickened. Amara wiped down the counter, her reflection blending with the warm light behind the window. That was when she noticed the envelope, cream-colored, sealed with no name but hers. Her hands paused mid-motion. She knew the handwriting before she opened it. The paper inside was simple, the ink careful, deliberate. Amara, they say witness protection means you stop being who you were. Maybe that's true. I've traded my name for quiet, and the sound of the sea somewhere far from here. But I carry the ledger in memory, the parts we burned and the parts we lived. You once told me mercy was what kept this city human. You were right. I thought power was control. You showed me its conscience. You forced daylight into corners I'd spent my life guarding, and because of that, something new can grow. I'm trying to learn what that looks like. Tell my mother her tea always tasted like forgiveness. Tell her I'm still learning to drink it slow. -D. At the bottom was a postscript, barely legible through smudged ink. Under another sky, the snow still falls. Maybe we'll both be watching it tonight. Amara folded the letter carefully, pressing her hand against the paper until the warmth of her palm replaced the chill of the ink. She slipped it into the drawer beneath the register, beside the one from her father. A circle of endings and beginnings bound in words. Outside, the streetlights glowed through the falling snow, turning the night into a quiet halo. She moved to the door and hung a small wooden snowflake from the frame. A handcrafted ornament a child from the neighborhood had carved and left with a note. For luck, Miss Amara. It spun gently in the warm air, catching glints of light like a memory reborn. Then she turned the sign to open, even though closing time had come and gone. Moments later, the bell above the door rang. A stranger stumbled in, wrapped in a coat too thin for the weather, snow dusting his shoulders. His eyes darted around the room, half lost, half hopeful. Amara stepped forward, wiping her hands on her apron, the same way she had on that night months ago when an old woman with a scuffed purse had crossed her threshold and changed everything. "You're safe here," she said softly. The man blinked, breathing hard. I just needed to warm up a minute." "Then sit," she said, guiding him toward Rosa's booth. "Soup's on the house." As she ladled the steaming broth into a bowl, she caught sight of the snowflake turning gently above the door, its shadow dancing across the walls. Outside, the storm whispered like an old friend returning home. Mr. Peña hummed from his booth. The dockworkers laughed softly over fresh cups of coffee. Life, fragile and real, hummed on. Amara placed the bowl before the stranger and smiled. "You found your way just in time." He looked up at her, gratitude flickering across his face. "You always keep the lights on this late?" "Always," she said. "Some folks still need a second chance." He nodded, eating slowly, the tension fading from his shoulders. Amara turned back to the window. Beyond the glass, the snow fell steady and bright, blanketing the city not in silence, but in forgiveness. The ledger was gone. The secrets burned, but mercy had roots that could survive any winter. She glanced again at the sign above the booth, Nonna's Corner, and smiled, hearing Rosa's voice echo softly in her memory. "I didn't get lost. I chose your light." Amara whispered back, "Thank you for finding me." Then she refilled the coffee pot, the scent curling through the air like a promise kept, and watched as the first true night of winter wrapped the diner in its calm, knowing embrace. Outside, the city slept. Inside, hope stayed awake.